useful to us as the board because we're the ones that make that final decision with regard to the budget. So this helps us inquire and get to know a lot more. So with regard to engineering, one of the common questions that I'm going to have for every department is how many employees are there? But there doesn't appear to be any employees in engineering.
No, the engineering staff is part of our road fund budget, 102,311, or at least the old pre-ERP numbers. This is an operating budget for expenses that they incur that cannot be covered by the road fund. So there are a lot of things that are completely unrelated to the roads, and this is where they would attract their time.
Because one of the big questions that I have when going through this is the revenue. It's surprising to me that the engineering staff is not creating at least that interagency or interfund cost plan, that revenue.
There are revenues that they do collect. Those are in the 102,311 budget. What happens is they track their time through a cost accounting software system, and we look at what revenue they bring in versus how much time they spent. They get credited for the revenue for their time. So roads doesn't charge us for that. They subtract that out, and then the difference for those activities, we use the there's an interfund line item. There's $250,000 for this fiscal year. That's where the money would come from.
Okay, that's I had that being that this was for non-road related work. So is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So my question, I guess, is, so I understand, is that if building maintenance needs an engineering question, does building maintenance, do we bill building maintenance for that? That's a very confusing thing.
The engineering division has done work for the administrative office, and yeah, they would send them an invoice, and then they would do a transfer. That transfer would likely go directly into the road fund. It wouldn't go into this budget. All their revenue goes into 102,311.
Okay. And then my final question, and I don't know if the rest of the gentlemen have any, is that we have a travel and training expense, but without employees, who's traveling?
Yeah, that would be for John Olson. He is a member of the technical peer review committee for the North Coast Resource Partnership. And as part of that, he has to attend meetings along the, I believe they're quarterly meetings. Last fiscal year, we really didn't have a whole lot to build to that line item. I think they had a meeting here in Crescent City, but that's what those funds are for.
Excellent.
For his travel.
Okay, thank you.
And I would recommend keeping him on that.
Oh. Yeah, I think he enjoys being part of it.
If I could just ask, what do you see the value as being for that? Just so I'm informed.
In the early days, it was bond funding that came down from the state of California for water infrastructure, in particular under Prop 80 or Prop 40. Prop 80, Prop 40. One of those two. Anyways, Jerry Hemmingson was really instrumental in the days of the early concept of North Coast Resource Partnership, and Mike Sullivan, who never attended it. But anyways, to get us a massive bit of funding here for a lot of our water development infrastructure that essentially came to the city because Stillnart was being overlooked. We developed positions that were technical advisors, not just electeds that sat on the board, but technical advisors that could be part of this technical committee, which John now sits on, to actually pre-select sort of and weed out low-performing applications for bond dollars, whether it's in this water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure field, or now forest resilience. Okay. And so John plays a critical role in the water, wastewater end of it, which we still see money for coming through that partnership. And so he's important on the technical advisory piece of that. And I could go into more detail later.
No, I love that. This is interesting for me.
The city has a representative also who sits on it.
Okay. That's all I have for engineering.
Anything to add to that, or do you want to move on to the next? Just in general? Oh, sure. Yeah, let's go on down to that.
Yeah, and in, already asked
Oh, hang on.
This
What's that,
one.
Heidi?
Oh, so we're skipping to public nuisance?
if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
I don't, unless anybody has anything else for
Oh, I'm gonna have
engineering. You're gonna, oh, do you want to keep going? That's fine with me. I just,
Yeah, go down to public nuisance. Yeah,
wow, let's skip around.
yeah.
So,
Hey, Chair, if we go in numeric order with the departments, it'll be a lot easier for staff.
so there.
I know numbers, you can pick a number you want, but betting every item in order.
All right.
So planning would be the next.
Planning department question?
No, none for me.
I can tell you, we have two planners. One is general fund, one is paid for with Measure R. And then we have a secretary who is shared between the planning division and code enforcement division. Also general fund.
And you're fully staffed in all of those?
Yes. we
Okay.
are.
So 2 planners and a half a secretary?
Yes.
Okay. So 2.5. And they're fully staffed?
Yes.
That's good to know. So what statistics, when you, at the end of the year, do you have, I know you do this in your state of the department report, but what statistics are you using to determine, I guess, outcomes is what I'm looking for in planning? Like, do you keep track of how many plans, permits were submitted, how many were approved?
Yeah, we do keep track of anything that was submitted. So we do track that information. We don't track formally the amount of inquiries we get at the counter, email, phone. A lot of our time is spent doing that type of work. But I can tell you, it would be very apparent to staff at the point that the number of inquiries that we were receiving surpassed the amount of time available for the 2 positions that we have. We've definitely felt it with the 1 position, which is why we have the second. I think as we gain more experience with our planning staff, it's going to be a lot smoother. I mean, they're already doing a great job.
Great, okay. And then under your professional services, there's a huge, well, I don't know if it's a huge jump, but we budgeted $164,000 last year and year-to-date, and I understand the final numbers haven't rolled in yet, but we're doing that again this year. Is there a specific thing that we're looking for under professional services?
Yes, $5,000 is that. $5,000 is set aside if we need to hire a consultant to assist us, say, on a CEQA document. $159,595 are grant funds from the State Coastal Conservancy for our Camp Memorial Park expansion study. And we've just sort of had that in a holding pattern for some time. So that's what that money is.
So I guess this is going to be a question that I'm going to have of the budget team, is that when grants are awarded, and do they come into the budget, do they come into the general fund budget, or are they housed someplace else until you use them? Because it's just curious to me that it's in here in the budget, but it's a grant, because I'm going to have that question.
So ask that one more time, please.
Pardon me?
Repeat your question, please.
My question is that when a department's awarded a grant, and then where does the grant live until they need to use it, or does it go straight into the general fund budget?
So most of our grants, I'd say the vast majority of our grants are reimbursable grants. So we budget what is the amount of the grant, so the revenue would be coming in, and then we project the expenditures based on that revenue. We won't see the revenue until work is done, and then we put in for the reimbursement. So it's playing catch up. So it's not being housed anywhere. Maybe at the state level, whoever has the initial funding source, and then we would be almost drawing down on that after we incurred the costs.
Okay, so in this particular grant, is that it's there, right? But we have to use general fund dollars to do it, and then we'll get reimbursed for it later.
Yes.
Yes.
When we get reimbursed, where does it go?
In that revenue line item, you're
In this particular budget, it goes into 90622 state aid grants, where we have 159,595.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one thing-
And it is reimbursement entirely.
That's one thing with a lot of our grants is we have to have the capital to front the money to then get reimbursed. I mean,
Okay.
there are some grants that kind of front load you, which are rare, but they do happen. And oftentimes with those grants, there's like a residual balance has to get sent back. But I think you don't get a choice. Either it's 99% of the time it's going to be a reimbursable grant.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And then planning, so you answered what that grant was for. That was under revenues. So it comes under expenditures, but it's also in revenues, so it equals itself out. That is all I have for planning.
Okay. Anything else on planning?
I do want to add, Val brought up an important point here that's not necessarily on the topic, but it is on topic about reimbursement processes with grants. Looking at grants sometimes, generally it's something that the department could, or in this case, the Auditor Controller's Office could pay quite readily, reimburse, and then you have a 30 to 60-day window before that reimbursement comes back in to fill the coffers for that invoice that was essentially expensed. Sometimes when those grants are really big, we really have to do some planning. And this came up recently on a airport JPA that Darren and I sat on, where folks weren't really thinking about how to cash flow large expenditures. So it's important for us to think about that and making sure those departments, in this case, have the proper funding to support large invoices that run through the Auditor Controller's Office. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Bill.
Yeah. You know what, Heidi, I did forget to ask a question if I could, unless Darren had something on this. So at the end of the year, sometimes the budget team does their final analysis and everything, and it's rare, but sometimes there is some discretionary spending, and I'm going to ask this of every department as well. I didn't ask it for in engineering, but for planning, if there is any discretionary funds remaining, is there anything in planning that you can anticipate that the board should know about, that if the budget team brings it back to the board and said, here's your list, we only have $100,000 and everybody wants this certain thing, is there anything in planning that you would be wanting to have on that list?
Something has come up recently that, and I don't know what the price tag is on it, but it would be some type of software, and I don't know if it'd be web-based or if it's something we could create with an access database. Actually, I was trying this morning to create my own for the planning division to track permits, not for people to intake and submit permits online, but just for us to track them through the various phases as they go through with have the conditions been met, our appeal period, all of those things. I think it can be done in an access database. I think there's probably maybe even some low-cost software option that would accomplish the same thing. I haven't had, again, this came up very recently, and I haven't had a time to meet with IT staff, but that would be something that I think would be very helpful for the planning staff to be more efficient in identifying where projects are in the process.
Okay, great. Yep, I mean, I'm not saying that we're all going to do it all, but my thing is that the board, needs to kind of know where departments are coming from with regard to what you need. And so, and our job is to make sure that the services that are being provided are helpful to staff as well as the public. So, thank you.
Okay, so next, moving on down to, looks like community development admin. What is your, staffing level and vacancies in there?
That would be myself, and it would be an administrative assistant, and she's paid 75% out of this budget, and 25% is paid by the environmental health budget.
Okay. Any questions on community development admin?
It's my only question that I have with regard, you run a really good department. I've let you know that, but under travel and training, and you do not need to be trained anymore. I understand that. But my question is, maybe not this year, but when you are looking on the horizon for retirement, should we be using this budget to perhaps start training some people in the areas that are just come naturally to you? And I don't know, let's say that, Rosanna is going to go get trained. I don't know that it would come out of this budget or the budget that she's in, but if it's pertinent to what you do in your job in this admin role, I'm just wondering if we should start thinking about succession planning.
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't plan on retiring this calendar year or this fiscal year. Taken into consideration of putting together next year's budget.
Okay.
Yeah, because
All right.
I agree. I think that there needs to be money in that line item for people to.
You're going to be hard to replace. I tell people this all the time. We are all replaceable, but there's certain ones that are going to be a lot harder to get through without, and you are one of them.
Thank you.
So just keeping with the question, is there anything, if we have this pot of money, is there anything discretionary-wise that the community development admin would need?
I think we're good. I think we're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Good. Okay, next, building inspection, staffing levels, vacancies, and possible upcoming vacancies.
Yes. Okay, so we have our building official / senior plan inspector. We have a building inspector, and we have an account clerk who is 75% billed to this budget and 25% to environmental health. Our building official has indicated that he plans to retire at the very end of the year. And we have $25,000 that have been placed into the part-time temporary line item. And this is for us to advertise a part-time temporary position, hopefully sooner than later, as soon as possible, so we can get someone in with the understanding that, assuming everything goes well, that on January 1, that would transition into a full-time position. That's my hope. And I recently submitted the employee requisition form with Human Resources. I'll be watching that closely. Know that it's very important that be refilled or filled.
Okay,
So Dave's going to retire January?
December 31st or
Okay.
December 30th or 31st. Either.
All right, so we are on a little bit of a crunch time.
We are.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
emphasize the importance of that, because again, how long has Dave worked with us?
He has been here 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of,
It
and,
is.
granted, everybody can be taught something, but it's that institutional knowledge that we sometimes miss out on. So we'll monitor that as well to make sure that whatever we can do to streamline that through would be helpful.
Thank you.
Can I keep going, Chair? Or do you have questions?
you can, well, I have just a
Go ahead.
curiosity question. I see the, whatever it's called, whatever the budgeted for revenues for building permits, you have dropped it. Why is that?
I think we were looking at where we were when we put together the, back in April, when we started with these budgets. So we were kind of tracking it, and that's what we estimated. Oftentimes, we do adjust it, prior to the final budget in September if it needs to be.
Okay. Any more?
Well, yeah, I noticed that too. It wasn't a significant drop, but it was curious to me, if there was something that was anticipated to have a slowdown of some sort, but
It was not for any particular reason. I can tell
Okay.
you that. It was more just, our crystal ball that we
Looked like it
keep
was
back
trending
there.
that way a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, all it takes is one,
Yeah.
particular project to bring up the revenue. So,
yeah.
Is there, sorry, before you move off that topic, is there any planned adjustments for our fee structure coming in this calendar, next fiscal year? Are we taking a look at doing anything like that?
I believe that there's going to be a county-wide analysis of all the fees and that we would be included in that. But I think CAO Lopez has those details.
Yeah, that's definitely on the horizon. That's something we have to do. I think we've talked about that quite a bit when we were going through the CASA and also looking at some of our unfunded liabilities that are on the books and just any way we can generate new revenue. Our last fee schedule update, I think, was in 2019, so we're quite a ways behind. So that's definitely going to be something we're going to shoot for during fiscal year 25-26. Just a lot of projects going on right now with admin, and we will probably be the ones that are administering that also.
Yeah, I I know it's probably not proper to reflect any type of increase in your current budget analysis, but just thinking about
And then I noticed the data processing software that we spent, what, 14,000 on? How is that working?
That does not work. We pulled the plug on it. It was not very good at all.
That's fair, yeah.
And so we decided just to pull the plug rather than put more money into it. I know a lot of time and expense has been spent on the ERP this past year, which is, I know, critical to everything. I would hope that after the dust kind of settles in, there might be time to look at other software that we could get back into looking at permitting software for building inspection, but we were sort of in the econo range and it showed, and we need to spend a little bit more money in order to get something. Supervisor Wilson, he's not here, but he connected with a representative from OpenGov, which is a company that does this type of software, and we've gone through some demos virtually, and it looks like they have a really nice product, and they've given us some price tags. One of the things that they suggested, which when we go to look at the fee schedule, is collecting a tech fee that can help pay for some of the software cost. But this is something I would like to definitely get into, but I know that, all of our tech folks are pretty busy at the time.
Yeah, when is the new system, when can we get our employees back? Does anybody have, you guys have been so busy, but when do you anticipate that kind of going through?
About the ERP system, we've gone live and now we're putting all the pieces together. My anticipation is before the next fiscal year, we should be up and running fully. We still have quite a bit of work to do. The HR and payroll modules won't start going live until January, so it's a pretty big process.
Yeah.
And I can speak more to it when we get to my
Seems to be
budget.
going pretty well, though.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so that was so one thing that you could put on the thing is that a software system that might work. All right, and Supervisor Wilson might have a lead for that. Okay. All right.
Okay, moving on to environmental health. Staffing there?
Okay, staffing, we have a senior environmental health specialist, an environmental health specialist, and we have 2 different employees who are each billed 25%, an account clerk and an administrative assistant. And it's fully staffed.
Okay. Any questions in environmental health?
Yeah, under professional services, I noticed that you budgeted last year and then year-to-date, whether or not that has come in or not, but it's budgeted again. What types of things under professional services is that 14,000 for?
The 14,000 is to hire a well drilling or a company that has a specific license, a C57 license, to destroy monitoring wells. This is at the Superfund site at the animal control, where we tested for multiple years for the Superfund. It finally tested to a point where we no longer need to test it. We submitted a closure plan to the Department of Toxic Substance Control probably a year and a half ago, and we're waiting for that to be finalized. And once it's finalized, the 14,000 should pay for a contractor with prevailing wage to complete that work.
I know, as soon as you said it, I'm like, I remember last year you telling me that too. I'm sorry I don't retain it, so.
Well, hopefully we'll get it done.
Yeah. Anything in environmental health that would help provide better services to all of us?
Not anything that I can think of. We were able to include $1,000 in the small tools line item that's going to help buy some supplies for our hazardous materials truck. There's some things beyond it that we need for the truck, but I believe we already have another funding source for those. And one thing I'd like to mention, and I don't know, it hasn't been chaptered or approved yet, but we have AB 993, the Rural Coupa Reimbursement Act, which is making its way, I think it's gone through the Assembly and now it's into the Senate. And that will give all rural Coupas, including Del Norte, who's never had the chance, up to $60,000 to be reimbursed. So we would that would be new revenue coming to our division. And then we would, we have an interdepartment agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services for the realignment funds. So the realignment funds would be adjusted to reflect the fact that we have new money to replace some of those funds.
What's the status of that legislation again?
It's cleared the Assembly and it's into the Senate. I
And
don't,
whose bill is it?
Hadwick, it's widely supported. It has, I mean, I think
No
it's
hurdles.
What was the number of it?
AB 993, the author is Hadwick. I believe that, I don't know if the board sent the letter or if Health and Human Services, a letter has been sent on the county's behalf in support of the bill.
I know our assemblyman will be here Wednesday, so probably should thank him for his support.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to what looks to be your last one, the public nuisance.
Okay, public nuisance. We have a senior code enforcement officer, general fund, a code enforcement officer, Measure R, a third code enforcement officer that is part Measure R, in part ERF grant from the Department of Health and Human Services. The third position has never been filled. And so, and I have done an employee requisition form for that position and hoping to get it advertised. I know that DHHS, they're very anxious to spend their ERF money. Had we had this refilled last year, which no fault of theirs, and unfortunately we had a staffing, the departure of our senior code enforcement officer, which kind of had a trickle down effect. But there was even funding last fiscal year to pay for the position, but because we had no one in it, we obviously couldn't bill to it. So the sooner we can get that position filled, the sooner we can.
Is it
Start
being
invoicing.
flown, Heidi? Is it up?
It's not up yet.
High enough, yeah.
Okay. Public nuisance questions?
Yeah, I just had the one line item, we already talked about this, 20230 professional services. The department asked for 40,000, but the budgeted amount was more than double that at 85,000. And you'll see I'm going to ask a few questions in this budget to other directors I was just curious how that process worked when,
Yeah.
a director brings to the budget team a certain ask and then it's changed. I just kind of wondered what project the directors hoped for and what the budget team had to say about it. Maybe something's come up and in this particular one, something has come up.
Yeah, and
Heidi, I'll let you-
actually, there are a few more details. Originally, we had intended for this, first I will say that the additional money was added to complete cleanup work related to some of our receivership projects. Specifically, now that I'm doing the math correctly, we added 45,000. 35,000 of that is to abate 494 Cooper Avenue, which will then be burnt. The additional 10,000, that may be for Olive Street. Like I said, these were intended to be in last fiscal year budget, but we didn't get to them. So in this case, what I did is I believe I called Auditor Controller Shad, and I mentioned, hey, we have this money, can we just carry it forward? And the adjustment, is that fair to say how it happened?
Yeah, that's accurate. There's also an offsetting revenue.
Yeah, yes.
So the 45,000 increase has a direct offset in revenue. That's going to be line 91076 in repayment. So that increase you see in the budget had a direct offset in revenue. That's when I get phone calls from parents like Heidi, say, hey, I have $40,000 in revenue, I need $40,000 in expense. We make those changes and bring them back to the board. If it would have been a $40,000 or $45,000 just draw, there's more discussions that we usually have around those. But in this one here, there's projects that were rolled over, there's a funding source for it, so we went and adapted the budget accordingly.
Thank you, Clint. And you mentioned Olive. I don't know if anybody's available or aware of the lot that's in question there, but it is terrible.
I think,
We went on a fire there the other day, and the CAL FIRE captain said, this is the worst lot I've ever been on. So,
and this is a different one. This is one that we did through a receivership. I know which one you're talking about,
Oh.
and we would love to get, I don't know if we even have enough money to pay for that with what we have in our lien repayment, but it's terrible.
that one's very bad. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about the same one.
No, I
so-
think we have, I think there's maybe 3 on that street. And Jackie knows the number.
Yeah,
wait.
the one you're talking about is one that we're in talks of putting it into receivership. One of the issues we run into is some of these properties are in such poor condition that the cost to abate it is far exceeds what the worth of the property is. And so, you know, the receivership group can't take those on. They can't get the money that they need in order to clean up the property. So we have had 2 of them that Heidi mentioned, where we had funds. So we asked for the court to put them into receivership with the understanding that we would do the cleanup. So the receivers are the ones who are able to remove the people who are occupying the property, deal with the selling of the property, kind of coordinate all of that. And then we coordinate the cleanup. And we do have at least 2 other ones that were kind of in that same situation. And so we have to see, are we going to be able to find the funds in order to do that?
And those funds would be in this budget line when it comes time?
When
Or if
it
and
comes
when it
time,
comes.
if we have it, what we have is our lien repayment fund, which, I'm sorry, I should
Oh.
have checked the balance of that prior to this. It wouldn't reflect removing the 45,000. We had it built up, but we've had to use it for these different cleanups. Just thinking about that one, that's going to be very costly. I mean, if other money were to become available, I think it would be money well spent to clean that property and to
Yeah,
get, and I think
I
the.
agree.
And yeah, I would echo that. You know, in the long term, putting forth the money to get these cleanups done, getting the properties, you know, put back onto the tax roll in a positive way, I think is overall good for the community. So I know Valerie's asked, you know, if there was extra money, this would be something that my department would like to see some funds put towards, because the group that the court has appointed thus far to be the receivers, they're willing to take on more properties. It's just, unfortunately, you know, some of these properties are in such poor condition, and a lot of them over in that area, they're just not worth it.
Right.
Yeah, this particular one that I was talking about is a very small lot, so the resale value on it's going to be relatively low, and it is completely full out to the street of vehicles, and trash, and burned up trailers, and you have this very, very nice piece of property sitting right next to it, green grass, brand new shop. I mean, brand new to where the garage door hadn't even been put on it yet, and here a trailer is burning right next to it, burning the fence down, scar on the side of the thing. So it really is something I feel that if we are going to clean something up as a county, that is one that definitely deserves our attention. So I certainly support putting some extra funding toward that effort.
Yeah, and just to reflect on Supervisor Short's comments, I know we've gotten lucky this year in certain extents and these type of things where the receiver, as Jackie was talking about, has made enough to pay for those cleanup efforts, but that's not always the case. I do think in terms of supporting the county specifically, that is a reasonable ask for us to consider. And so appreciate you bringing that up. I know we got lucky on the project out there at Lake Earl, or I'm hoping we're getting really lucky on that. And looks like that whole big mess is going to be paid for by the sale of property potentially. So, I mean, if we could keep going that direction, but offer a little help on our side, that just does nothing but to get money flowing back into our coffers. So
How
Good
could we further that discussion and maybe add some money to that lien repayment
That was my
line.
question, is how do we build up that fund naturally?
It's through the payment of liens
Okay,
that have been placed. Dominic was very crafty, and they did some did some jobs that ended up, we got the money back, and, we've gotten some interest, and so
but that was
it's been
only
nice.
ever about 45,000. Was it higher than about
No,
45,000?
we've had upwards, I think, to 150,000 in our, that's why I wish I had written down how much was in that fund. But again, I know, like I said, we've already allocated the 45,000 that's in this budget toward it, so we'd have to subtract that out because we don't really have it. But yeah, I think that we need to figure out kind of how much it would cost to clean it.
And there's other things kind of in the wings that will be, that'll be used for cleanup. I mean, the county now owns a lot of property that's out near the Ruth compound that we're going to have to be cleaning up in the coming years too. So I think we need to figure out a way to maybe roll some money away into that line item there so we can, I guess that particular line item is the lien repayment. So that goes along with the receivership, right? So that wouldn't be for
No,
like
it's
cleanup.
unrelated.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could be something that, if money were to go into the lien repayment fund, where we could come to the board and ask permission to transfer X amount into this budget with the board's approval, and then you could pick which projects you want.
And it also could be something perhaps that's brought to the Measure R committee to look at, do we want to put some funding aside for this? But I do know that the receivership group we work with is very much committed to helping clean up these types of properties and whatnot, but they are limited when, because a lot of these properties also are very delinquent in property taxes, that those get paid first out of a sale. So things of that nature really make it difficult for them.
Gotcha.
I'll give you a little history on that account if I get it right. That's fairly new. That lien repayment account is fairly new with our county, historically speaking. Started a few years ago, the different supervisors no longer on the board, putting money aside for those kinds of projects. Historically, we'd funded everything up front with the general fund, and then, or a grant would come in through, and then we get reimbursed with the lien on the property. Yeah, since we're kind of talking out loud about it and chiming in here, one possible idea would be kind of like a road department. If Heidi had a list of properties that would maybe need to be, put on that list and overhauled, the board could take a look at that. If we get some estimates on cost, that would give us an idea of what kind of money we're talking about. Right now it's a good conversation, but I bet you we can spend a whole lot of money in our community doing these kinds of projects. We don't have some kind of structure around it. The board can see a list, estimated costs, and start knocking them off as we go.
Yep, great idea. Thank you, Clint.
So I think you answered my question. If you had any discretionary funding, where it would go. But my only real pertinent question is under 90621, the state illegal disposal sites. We budgeted for 155,000. Year to date's only 55,000. Are we? That's 100,000. Are we anticipating that revenue coming in?
Okay. Were the actual for last fiscal year?
Yeah, 90621, state illegal disposal sites.
Yeah, those were, okay, we had the grant from Cal Recycle. The estimate to clean to the two of the properties, as far as the grant funds that we received or were allocated for, were far greater than what it took to actually clean the properties. So that's money that just stays with Cal Recycle.
Oh,
we were
bummer.
reimbursed for every, yeah.
Okay.
I know, and that was one of the things that toward the end, there just wasn't enough time to try to change that money and direct it someplace else. But on the plus side, we're in very good standing with Cal Recycle, and the next time we have an opportunity to apply for this grant, I think that they've been pleased with Del Norte's work. And it's been very helpful for us. We've done some nice cleanups.
So is there any other thing that you need from the board with regard to your budgets or anything that we need to know about?
Not that I can think of, but thank you for asking.
Okay, with that, I'll open it for public comment before you head out.
Better not
Any
back
public
my
comment?
stuff.
First, I have to give Not too many, you didn't do too bad. Couple of my questions were already answered, but before I get into that, I have one issue that I want to, it's kind of an overall issue. I've talked to both Neil and Clint about this, and it's the unrestricted fund balance. We need to address the unrestricted fund balance. Based on the interpretation of the Budget Act, we're required to recognize the unrestricted fund balance in addition to the revenue when addressing the budget expenses. The result being we need to pad the expenses so that the net revenue and expenses equal zero. Treating the fund balance as revenue, we are forced to distort the real activity. Furthermore, we actually plan to use the fund balance. If we actually plan to use the fund balance to cover our budget, we would not have funds for emergencies like fires, floods, and other national disasters. This year's unrestricted fund balance is $5.9 million. That's a lot of padding. I'm asking that you set aside a sizable portion of the unrestricted fund balance in a reserve account on the balance sheet. This would remove it from the budget process while still leaving it available to cover any actual losses between real revenue and real expenses. Padding a budget is not the answer to balancing a budget. For this year's budget, I am going to address services and supplies. The proposed budgets total $12 million in services and supplies. Compared to the last 3 full years, this average is $5 million or 71% increase. And compared to year-to-date 8/1/25, it's a $4 million or 50% increase. And you see my comment about fund balance. Planning overall is 49,000 average over the average and 177,000 over the year-to-date. Professional services, no explanation for what the 125,000 average and no year-to-date in professional services. You may have addressed that, but I could not hear everything you were saying.
Okay.
I didn't really have much issues in anything else. There were little bits and pieces, but they're not worth addressing, except in public nuisance, which I heard you cover that. I wanted to know about the professional services and no budget for abatement, and I got that answer. So my question here is for planning, professional services.
I can answer
It's
that.
124,000 over the 2-year average.
Yeah, well, we have a grant from the State Coastal Conservancy, and the remaining balance on it is $159,595. And then we have $5,000 that we've allocated to hire a consultant in the event that we need expertise that goes beyond what we have. Actually, I should have mentioned, we're thinking about maybe getting some training, which some of the planning firms can also offer to our staff with those funds. But the Coastal Conservancy grant, we've had it since roughly 2021, or even maybe even longer than that. There's been a delay in carrying it out, something kind of unrelated but related to our grant, which is why it didn't change from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. Hopefully we'll have some movement this year and be able to spend those funds. I talked to our grant manager within the last 2 weeks about that.
So this is for miscellaneous professionals to give you some kind of,
I'm sorry, it would be for us to hire, in this case, it would be, say, a park planner or an environmental consulting firm to help put together a plan for our Camp Memorial Park, and then any type of studies that may be required if we had to do on-site mitigation, those types of things. That's what these funds have been allocated for, $159,595 of it.
okay. And this year, so year-to-date, you haven't spent anything.
No, I have not. We spent none last year, and we've spent none this year.
So are you going to spend it this time? Is that the plan?
Hopefully, like I said, there is something that's a little bit outside of our control that we're waiting to get information about. before we make that call. I'm working with District 3 Supervisor Howard on this. He knows kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close it.
That's it for this department.
Thank you.
I have others, but they haven't come up yet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Wonderful job as always.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.